With America's promise not to fight inside Ukraine or inside Russia, what more can this country do to put more pressure on Moscow as Vladimir Putin's war on Ukraine rolls into its 8th day? House Appropriations Committee member Congressman Josh Harder with me now live. And Congressman, good morning to you.
Good morning. Thanks for having me.
Definitely. Well, there's an appropriations bill up for a vote on March 8th. You hope it includes $3 billion for weapons and body armor to help sustain the Ukrainian resistance. Over the past year, this country had already committed $650 million to Ukraine in security assistance. Is this new allotment proposal enough to stave off Putin?
I think we're going to have to take it day by day. What we're witnessing right now, an unprovoked attack by Russia on a democratic country, is completely unacceptable. And we need to do two things. First, we need to make sure that we are supporting the Ukrainian people with not just the humanitarian assistance, the food, the medical supplies, the energy resources that they need, but also the military assistance. These folks have shown a will to fight, even if they have to use kitchen knives and broomsticks in order to do it. It's up to us to make sure that they are as equipped as possible. We've already been sending a lot of military supplies. This bill that I'm working on right now is going to supersize that and hopefully make sure that they have all that they need.
We are just getting word this morning that Senator Manchin, Senator Murkowski are going to be introducing a bill that is going to ask for the banning of Russian energy imports. They're going to do that this afternoon. What's your reaction?
I think it makes a lot of sense. We should not be financing this invasion by buying Russian oil while at the same time we're putting down sanctions. We have to hurt Putin and his oligarchs that are propping up his regime where it hurts, which is their wallets. It's their yachts, it's their palaces, it's making sure that they feel the economic consequences of this invasion.
President Biden has taken a lot of heat for moving too slowly on some sanctions, like shutting Russia off from the global banking payment network SWIFT. That finally came Saturday. By Monday, the ruble hit a record low of less than 1 U.S. cent in value. Is the hope that the Russian people just get so angry they overthrow their leader, or that he won't be able to stand what's happening and pulls back to get some relief?
Let's be clear. Putin only runs Russia when the billionaires around him allow him to do so. So in the past few days, we've frozen hundreds of billions of dollars in Russian assets that are owned by those oligarchs and by the Russian government. Putin is being sanctioned personally for the first time in American history. And we've also created a new task force that is going after the corrupt billionaires and the assets that they hold across the country, across the world. Germany just yesterday seized a $600 million yacht owned by a Russian billionaire. You're going to be seeing a lot more news just like that, not hurting the Russian people, many of whom are very much opposed to this invasion, but hurting the billionaires that are actually propping up this regime and making sure that we hit them where it actually hurts.
There are already reports that President Putin has sent troops out into Ukraine without enough food, without enough gas. Their tires are popping as they're rolling in this convoy because the tanks have not been maintained. If you're willing to do that on the front end to your own armed forces, any concern that he will just be so desperate that he's of a mind that with his economy being destroyed, it doesn't matter what happens next, so just keep bombing?
This is a very dangerous situation. You don't want to get into a challenging predicament like this with somebody who is as unpredictable as Putin, and especially not somebody who actually manages more nuclear weapons in Russia than any other country on the globe. So we have to be very careful about making sure that this does not continue to escalate. But this is a David versus Goliath battle on the ground. The Ukrainian people are fighting as hard as they can, and it's up to us to make sure that we're supporting them in that effort and make sure that they have everything they need to fight as hard as they can. These folks are freedom fighters, and they deserve as much support as we can give them.
Aside from the disconnection from SWIFT, Congress is considering other measures to hamstring the Russian central bank. Like what?
There's a number of things that we could be doing. We've already seen the collapse of the ruble. You're already seeing a lot of Western companies, Fortune 500 companies that actually have assets in Russia pulling out. The most important thing here is to making sure that we're as focused as possible on the folks who actually prop up this regime. We've already seen a lot of protests in Moscow and other Russian cities from folks that do not support this. And we don't want to create an economic crisis in Russia. We want to make sure that we are focusing those sanctions on the people who are actually responsible for supporting this invasion. And we also want to make sure that we're crippling the Russian military supply chain. You mentioned some of their efforts in Ukraine and some of the challenges that they've actually had getting more military supplies into Ukraine. The more that we can do to cut off that military engine, to make sure that they don't have the fuel and the weapons that the military folks need on the ground to push that invasion forward, the better it's going to be for the Ukrainian people.
The appropriations bill under construction will also include about $3 billion for food, medical supplies, and other humanitarian aid. That's part of this package. We know that that's very important to you. The finer points of this proposal are still being negotiated with Republicans. What are the sticking points?
Well, I think we need to be moving with a lot more urgency than we've actually seen. I wish we'd been able to get this bill out of the floor this week. Now it looks like it's going to go into next week. This needs to happen as soon as possible. I mean, you see the images every single day. The situation is changing, and we have to make sure that we don't just pass a bill that makes us feel good, but those resources actually get to the people on the ground so they can make a difference. And there's a lot in this bill that's going to make sure that we can help the folks where it's actually needed. One of the things here that I'm fighting for is making sure that we are protecting the Ukrainian electricity grid so the lights don't go off while these folks are defending their families and their homes. But the most important sticking point right now needs to be urgency and making sure that we're not just letting the perfect be the enemy of the good.
That is definitely something I was just about to ask you about, because the vote on this is set now for March 8th. Kherson has already fallen to the Russians. What are your fears about Kyiv perhaps falling before you're able to act on even this bill?
I think the situation is unfortunately going to get worse before it gets better. Russia has a military 5 times the size of Ukraine. They have spent tens of billions of dollars investing, buying military equipment. They have built up this invasion for decades. Like I said, this is a David versus Goliath battle, and even though there's been heroic resistance from the Ukrainian people, they're up against the wall. And so that's why this package needs to be urgently moved forward, both because of the humanitarian restrictions. We've seen hundreds of thousands of refugees. We're starting to see food shortages, electricity shortages. We need to make sure that we're getting folks the help that they need on the ground, and because of the military supplies. The folks that really need to make sure that they're getting that body armor, that ammunition, as well as those anti-tank missiles, they need them yesterday. And that's as soon as we should be able to make sure we're getting it.
All righty. Thank you so much for your perspective on what is a situation that really is changing moment to moment. We appreciate you.
Thank you.